How does a man lose his own house without losing his name? What happens when they think you're trapped, and the system is already on your side? Can one quiet detail change who walks out and who doesn't? My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 52 years old, and for the last 30 years, I've built systems, computer networks, security protocols, infrastructure that keeps entire corporations running. I retired early, not because I was tired, but because I'd made enough to live quietly. I bought a house in a decent neighborhood, married a woman who seemed to want the same quiet life, and thought I'd found peace. I was wrong. The house was mine. Legally, entirely, unquestionably mine. I'd purchased it 8 years ago, before Elena and I even met. When we married, I kept it in a trust, a decision my attorney, Susan Vale, had insisted on. "Protect what you've built," she'd said. I'd thought it was paranoia at the time. Now I understood it was foresight. But none of that mattered when you're sitting in your own living room and 3 people are discussing your future as if you're not there. Elena sat on the couch, the one I'd bought in the house I'd paid for, with her legs crossed, scrolling through her phone. Victor stood by the window, his back to me, hands in his pockets. He was younger than me by 14 years, broader in the shoulders, and he carried himself like someone who'd never been told no. Marla Quinn, the so-called family consultant Elena had hired, sat across from me with a leather portfolio on her lap. "Daniel," Marla said, not looking up from her notes, "we're trying to make this as smooth as possible for everyone involved." I didn't respond. I'd learned over the past 3 months that silence was safer than protest. Every time I questioned something, Elena would sigh dramatically, Victor would shake his head, and Marla would give me this pitying look, as if I were a child interrupting adult conversation. "The transition timeline," Marla continued, flipping a page, "is set for the end of next month. That gives you 4 weeks to make arrangements." "Arrangements for what?" I asked. Elena finally looked up from her phone. Her expression was patient, almost kind, which somehow made it worse. "For your move, Daniel. We've been over this." "I'm not moving." Victor turned from the window. He didn't say anything, just looked at me with that half smile he always wore. It was the expression of someone watching a small dog bark at a fence. "Let's not make this difficult," Marla said. She pulled out a document, placing it on the coffee table between us. "This is a temporary cooperation agreement. It just formalizes what we've already discussed. You'll have access to the guest house for the transition period, and we'll help you find a suitable apartment nearby." I stared at the paper. I didn't touch it. "The guest house," I said slowly, "on my property." "Daniel," Elena said, her voice taking on that edge I'd come to recognize, "you're making this about ownership when it should be about what's healthy for everyone. You know, the counselor said—" "We never saw a counselor together." "Because you refused to go," she said smoothly. "Marla has been acting as an intermediary, which you agreed to." I didn't remember agreeing to that. I remembered Elena telling me we needed to talk to someone, and then suddenly Marla was there, in my house, taking notes and creating timelines and speaking about transitions as if they were inevitable weather patterns. "I need to think about this," I said. "That's fine," Marla said, standing. She left the document on the table. "But we do need an answer by Friday. The security assessment is scheduled for Saturday morning." "Security assessment?" "Just standard procedure," Marla said, gathering her portfolio. "When there's a living arrangement change, especially with emotional complexity, we like to have a neutral party present, for everyone's safety." Victor finally spoke. His voice was casual, friendly even. "Nothing to worry about, Daniel. Just a guy making sure everybody stays calm." After they left, I sat in the living room until the sun went down. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Elena moving around upstairs. In the master bedroom, the one we used to share before she decided I should sleep in the study for now. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went down to the kitchen around 2 in the morning, moving quietly through the dark. The house knew my footsteps. I'd walked these floors 10,000 times, knew which boards creaked, where the moonlight came through the windows. I was pouring water when I heard voices from the dining room. Low, careful voices. Elena and Victor. "Friday at the latest," Elena was saying. "Marla says once he signs, we can accelerate the timeline." "And if he doesn't sign?" Victor asked. "He will. He's conflict avoidant. Always has been. You've seen him. He won't even argue. He'll just fold." "What about the title situation?" There was a pause. I could picture Elena's face, that calculating expression she got when she was solving a problem. "Marla's handling it," she said. "There are ways to challenge old trusts, especially if we can demonstrate incompetence or instability." "Is he unstable?" Elena laughed softly. "He will be, if necessary. That's what the security assessment is for. We create a record, document concerning behavior. Marla knows people who specialize in this kind of thing." I stood frozen in the kitchen, the glass of water forgotten in my hand. "The consultant's expensive," Victor said. "The house is worth it. Once it's properly ours, we can leverage it however we want. Sell it, rent it, whatever. But first, we need him gone." I set the water down carefully and walked back upstairs. I didn't go to the study. Instead, I went to the garage, to the locked cabinet where I kept important documents. I stood there in the dark, my hand on the combination lock, thinking about Susan Vale and the conversation we'd had 8 years ago. "A trust isn't just protection," she'd said. "It's a fortress. But you have to maintain it. Review it. Keep it current. Don't let anyone tell you it's old or invalid or needs updating. If it's structured correctly, it's ironclad." I opened the cabinet and pulled out the folder. Inside were the trust documents, the deed, the property records. Everything was in order. Everything was current. I'd updated it all just 6 months ago after Elena had first mentioned that the house felt too much like mine and not enough like ours. I'd thought I was being paranoid then too. Now I understood I'd been preparing. The next morning, I was making coffee when Elena came downstairs. She was dressed for the day, makeup perfect, smile pleasant. "Morning," she said brightly. "Did you think about the agreement?" "I did." "And?" "I'm not signing anything on Friday." Her smile didn't waver, but something changed in her eyes. "Daniel, you're being stubborn about something that's already decided. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about moving forward." "Forward from what?" "From a situation that isn't working anymore. We've grown apart. You know that." "We've grown apart," I repeated, "so I should leave my house." "It's not about the house. It's entirely about the house." She studied me for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and sent a quick text. 30 seconds later, Victor came down the stairs. He must have been waiting up there. "Everything okay?" Victor asked, looking at Elena, not me. "Daniel's having difficulty with the process," Elena said. Victor turned to me. He was wearing a t-shirt that showed off his gym-built arms. The message was subtle, but clear. "Hey, man," he said, his tone reasonable. "I get it. Change is hard, but you're not making this easier on yourself. Elena's trying to be fair here. A lot of guys in your situation would get nothing." "My situation," I said. "Yeah, you know, the age thing, the circumstances. Look, I'm not trying to be harsh, but you had your time, right? Now it's time to let other people live their lives." I looked at him, really looked at him. He was 38 years old, and he genuinely believed that made him superior. He thought my 52 years were a weakness, that my quiet demeanor meant defeat. I wondered what he'd think when he learned the truth. "I'll think about it," I said. Elena's expression tightened. "The meeting is Friday, Daniel. Marla's scheduled it. The security consultant will be there. You need to make a decision. I said I'll think about it. After they left the kitchen, I went to my study and closed the door. I took out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Susan Vale's number. We hadn't spoken in 4 months, not since the last trust review. I sent her a simple text. Need to talk, soon. Her response came 3 minutes later. My office, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Don't discuss with anyone. That afternoon, I drove to the bank. It was a small errand, just checking on some account details, but I wanted to see something for myself. When I gave my name to the clerk, I watched her face carefully. She smiled, checked her computer, and her smile changed, became more attentive, more respectful. Mr. Mercer, she said. How can I help you today? I asked about my accounts. She confirmed everything. When I mentioned the property trust, her fingers moved across the keyboard, and she nodded. Everything is current and in order, sir. The trust structure is solid. All documentation is filed correctly with the county. And there haven't been any inquiries? Attempts to access information? She checked again. No, sir. Your accounts are flagged as private. Only you and your designated attorney have access to trust details. I thanked her and left. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and watched the clouds move across the sky. Elena thought I was weak because I didn't argue. Victor thought I was finished because I was older. Marla thought I was confused because I stayed quiet. None of them understood that silence could be strategy. That evening, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a man in a dark polo shirt with a security company logo. He was young, maybe 29, with the military bearing of someone who'd done close protection work. Daniel Mercer? He asked. Yes. Caleb Rourke. I'm with Sentinel Security Services. I'm here to do a preliminary walkthrough for Saturday's assessment. I didn't authorize any assessment. He pulled out a tablet and showed me a work order. Elena's signature was at the bottom, along with Marla Quinn's name as the requesting party. Ma'am said you were informed, Caleb said. His voice was neutral, professional. This is just a security consultation, standard procedure for occupied property transitions. I'll be present Saturday to make sure everything stays calm and professional. Who's paying you? That's between the client and the company, sir. I'm just here to do a job. I looked at him. He looked back. There was no malice in his expression, no judgment. He was a contractor doing contracted work. In his world, whoever signed the check determined the truth. I assume you'll want to see the property, I said. If that's all right, sir. I let him in. He walked through the house, taking notes on his tablet, measuring distances, noting exits and camera positions. When we got to the living room, he paused. Sir, I notice you're wearing a ring, he said, pointing to my right hand. I looked down. It was a simple gold band with a small engraving on the inside, my initials, and the date I'd established the property trust. Susan had given it to me as a reminder, a physical token of legal protection. So you never forget what's yours, she'd said. Family ring, I said simply. Caleb made a note and continued his walkthrough. When he finished, he stood at the door. Saturday morning, 9 a.m., he said. I'll be in the conference room with you and the other parties. My job is to observe and intervene only if things get physically unsafe. I don't take sides. Understood. After he left, I went to the kitchen and found Elena and Victor sitting at the table, looking at floor plans on a laptop. Redecorating? I asked. Elena didn't look up. Planning some updates, once things are settled. I noticed Victor had marked the study as home office and the master bedroom as primary suite. The guest house was labeled N.A. There was no room labeled for me anywhere. That night, I barely slept. I lay in the study's fold-out couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about timelines and signatures and documents, about people who thought quiet meant weak. I thought about Susan Vale and the fortress she'd helped me build. And I thought about Friday and what would happen when they realized the fortress had no gates for them to enter. The meeting was set for 9 a.m. Friday at Marla Quinn's office, which turned out to be a converted Victorian house downtown with Quinn Mediation Services on a brass plaque by the door. I arrived exactly on time. Elena's car was already in the lot, parked next to Victor's truck. Inside, the receptionist, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, directed me to the second-floor conference room. I climbed the stairs slowly, listening to the old wood creak under my feet. Through a half-open door, I could hear Elena's voice. "Just needs to understand it's over." I knocked and entered. The room was set up like a corporate negotiation. Long table, leather chairs, a projector screen on one wall. Elena sat on the far side with Victor beside her. Marla was at the head of the table with her portfolio open. Caleb Rourke stood near the window, arms crossed, watching everything with that professional neutrality. "Daniel," Marla said, gesturing to the chair across from Elena. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." I sat. I placed my hands flat on the table, the ring clearly visible on my right hand. "Let's begin," Marla said. She pulled out a document, the same cooperation agreement from before, but thicker now. "We've refined the terms based on our previous discussion. The key points are simple. You agree to vacate the primary residence by the end of next month. You'll have supervised access to collect your belongings over a 2-week period. Elena will assume primary residency, and you'll receive a one-time settlement payment to help with relocation costs." "How much?" I asked. $15,000. I almost laughed. The house was worth $700,000. The property, with its half-acre lot in a desirable neighborhood, was worth more. "That's generous," Victor said, speaking for the first time. "Considering." "Considering what?" I asked. "Considering you're not on the deed anymore." The room went very quiet. I turned to Marla. "What does that mean?" Marla's expression was carefully neutral. "Elena filed a quitclaim deed amendment last month. Given the length of the marriage and the state's community property laws, she has a legitimate claim to co-ownership. The amendment has been processed." "Based on what?" "Based on occupancy, financial contribution, and the marriage contract itself." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "The house is in a trust. She can't file anything against a trust." Marla smiled thinly. "Old trusts can be challenged, Daniel, especially when there's evidence of marital commingling of assets. Elena has receipts showing she's contributed to household expenses, maintenance, improvements. In the eyes of the law, that creates equity." I looked at Elena. She met my gaze without flinching. "You knew," I said. "I knew you'd make this difficult," she replied. "So we did what we had to do. Marla's right. You've been treating this house like it's only yours when I've lived here for 3 years. I've paid for things. I've invested in this place. With my money. With our money. That's how marriage works, Daniel." I turned back to Marla. "I want to see the quitclaim filing. It's public record. You can look it up at the county recorder's office." "Then I will." Marla leaned forward. "You can fight this, Daniel. You can hire lawyers, contest the filing, drag this out for months, but you'll lose. The courts favor equitable distribution. And the longer you fight, the more expensive it gets, and the worse you look. Man in his 50s, refusing to accept the end of a relationship, harassing his younger ex-wife." She let that hang in the air. Victor leaned back in his chair. "Sign the paper, man. Take the money. Move on with your life." I looked around the room. At Elena, who'd shared my bed and my home and had been planning this for months. At Victor, who thought age and confidence were the same thing. At Marla, who was getting paid to facilitate theft. At Caleb, who was getting paid to make sure I didn't physically resist. "I need time to think," I said. "You've had time," Marla said. "We need a decision today." "Then the decision is no." Elena's composure cracked slightly. "Daniel, Don't be stupid about this. I'm not signing. Marla closed her portfolio with a sharp snap. Fine. Then we'll proceed with the alternative filing. As of next week, you'll be served with a formal eviction notice. Elena will claim domestic disruption and seek a restraining order based on your refusal to cooperate. With Caleb's testimony about your behavior today. I haven't behaved in any way, I interrupted. Your refusal to engage in good faith mediation can be construed as hostile, Marla continued smoothly. Combined with Elena's documented concerns about your mental state. What concerns? Elena pulled out her phone and scrolled through something. You've been withdrawn, paranoid, making accusations. I've been keeping notes, dates, times, specific incidents. You've mentioned feeling watched. You've accused me of plotting against you. You've become obsessed with documents and legal papers. I stared at her. Every word was true, but only because she'd been plotting against me and I'd been protecting myself. That's not instability, I said. That's awareness. That's your interpretation, Marla said. But in a legal proceeding, perception matters more than intention. A man in his 50s, socially isolated, obsessed with control, refusing to accept reality. Do you see how that looks? I saw exactly how it looked. They'd been building a narrative, brick by brick, conversation by conversation. Every time I'd questioned something, they'd recorded it as paranoia. Every time I'd stayed quiet, they'd called it withdrawal. They were creating a version of me that didn't exist, but that a judge might believe. I want to speak to my attorney, I said. That's your right, Marla said, but understand that the longer this takes, the more complicated it becomes. Legal fees accumulate, court dates stack up, and every day you resist looks worse on record. I stood. I'm leaving. Caleb moved slightly, not blocking the door but making his presence obvious. Sir, we're not finished with the scheduled mediation. I don't care. Mr. Mercer, Caleb said, his voice calm but firm, I need you to stay seated until the session concludes. That's part of my contract. I looked at him. You're going to physically restrain me? I'm going to encourage you to fulfill your commitment to this process. I didn't commit to anything. Marla's voice was silk over steel. You agreed to this meeting, Daniel. You came here voluntarily. Walking out now, refusing to finish what you started, that goes in the report. That becomes part of the pattern. I understood then. They didn't need me to sign anything. They just needed me to do something, anything, that could be framed as unstable, aggressive, non-compliant. Walking out would be abandoning mediation. Raising my voice would be verbal aggression. Trying to leave would be refusal to engage in court-ordered proceedings, even though no court had ordered anything. I sat back down. Smart choice, Victor said. We sat there for another 40 minutes. Marla went through the agreement line by line, explaining what I'd be giving up, what I'd be receiving, how reasonable it all was. Elena added commentary about how this was best for everyone. Victor said nothing, just watched me like I was an animal that might bolt. Through it all, I kept my hands flat on the table. The ring caught the light from the window. Caleb noticed. I saw his eyes track to it several times. Each time, something flickered in his expression. Not recognition exactly, but attention. Like he was trying to remember something. When Marla finally declared the session over, I stood immediately. We'll be in touch about next steps, Marla said. Given your refusal to cooperate, we'll be filing the necessary legal motions. Expect service by end of next week. I left without responding. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and called Susan Vale. How did it go? She asked. They're filing eviction and claiming I'm not on the deed. There was a pause. Then quietly, they're bluffing. They said they filed a quitclaim amendment. Daniel, I review that trust quarterly. No one can file anything against it without triggering notifications to me. I've received nothing. They're either lying or they filed something that won't hold up for 5 seconds in actual court. They sounded very confident. Of course they did. That's the game. They're counting on you being scared enough to settle. Don't be. Come to my office tomorrow morning. Bring everything. Every document they've given you, every text message, every recording if you have one. We're going to dismantle this. I drove home in silence. When I got there, Elena and Victor were already back, sitting in the living room with Marla. They looked up when I entered. We need to discuss boundaries, Marla said without preamble. Moving forward, until this is resolved, Victor will be staying here full-time, for Elena's safety. Her safety from what? From uncertainty, from potential escalation. This is my house. It's Elena's residence, Marla corrected. And given your behavior today, we think it's prudent to have someone here who can intervene if necessary. Victor was already bringing in bags from his truck. He carried them upstairs to the master bedroom, my bedroom, the one Elena had exiled me from months ago. That night, I lay awake in the study, listening to them move around above me, listening to them laugh, listening to them plan. I thought about Susan's voice on the phone, calm and certain. I thought about the ring on my finger, and I thought about how much closer they were getting to the moment when everything would reverse. Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of voices downstairs. I checked my phone, 7:30. The house assessment wasn't scheduled until 9. I got dressed and went down to find Marla and Caleb already there, both drinking coffee in my kitchen. Elena was making eggs. Victor was scrolling through his phone at the table. "Morning," Elena said brightly, as if I were a guest who'd overstayed. I didn't respond. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter. Marla set down her cup. "Daniel, we have the property assessment this morning. After yesterday's difficulties, we've decided to move forward with some precautionary measures." "What measures?" She pulled out a folder. "We're implementing a temporary living arrangement modification. Beginning today, you'll be residing exclusively in the guest house. This reduces proximity conflict while the legal proceedings unfold." "You can't do that." "Actually, we can. Elena has established residency rights. As the primary resident, she can request reasonable boundaries for her safety and well-being. The guest house has a bedroom, bathroom, and kitchenette. You'll have everything you need." I looked at Caleb. He was watching me with that same neutral expression, but something in his eyes had changed since yesterday. He kept glancing at my right hand. "What's your role in this?" I asked him. "I'm here to ensure compliance," he said. "If you voluntarily relocate to the guest house, there's no issue. If you resist, I'm authorized to assist in the transition." "Assist means what, exactly?" "It means I'll help you pack some essentials and escort you to the guest house, non-violently, professionally, but firmly." Victor set down his phone. "Come on, man. Don't make this a thing. It's just a few weeks until the lawyers sort it out. You'll have your space, we'll have ours. Everyone stays calm." I looked around my kitchen. The kitchen I'd renovated 3 years ago, the appliances I'd chosen, the tile I'd laid myself one summer weekend. Every piece of this house had my fingerprints on it, literally and legally. "Fine," I said. Marla looked surprised. "You'll comply?" "I'll pack some things and move to the guest house, but I want it documented that I'm doing this under duress, not agreement." "Noted," Marla said, making a quick note in her folder. I went upstairs to pack. My study had already been picked through, drawers open, papers scattered. They'd been looking for something, probably the trust documents. Lucky for me, those were locked in the garage cabinet. I filled a duffel bag with clothes, toiletries, my laptop. I took a few books. When I came back downstairs, Caleb was waiting. "I'll walk you over," he said. The guest house was at the back of the property, separated from the main house by about 50 yards of lawn. It was a nice structure. I'd built it as an office originally, then converted it when Elena's mother had visited last year. Bedroom, small bathroom, kitchenette, sitting area. Self-contained. Self-contained, I realized, also meant isolated. Caleb helped me carry the bags. When we got inside, he did a quick walkthrough, checking windows, noting the lock on the door. This locks from the inside, he said, but there's a master key for emergencies. Who has the master key? Elena, and I'll keep one during the assessment period. And how long is the assessment period? That depends on your cooperation level. Could be a week. Could be longer. He moved toward the door, then stopped. He was looking at my hand again. That ring, he said quietly. Family heirloom? Something like that. My grandfather had one similar, Masonic, I think. Not Masonic. He studied it more closely. I could see the gears turning in his head. The ring wasn't ornate, but it was specific. Gold band, formal engraving, the kind of thing that marked membership or ownership or official standing. Property marker? He asked suddenly. I didn't answer. His eyes narrowed. Then he looked around the guest house, then back toward the main house, then at me. You're the owner, he said. It wasn't a question. I'm the owner. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, they told me this was a marital dissolution with joint property. They lied to you. The trust is ironclad, has been for 8 years. There's no joint ownership. There's no community property claim. They're trying to force me out of my own house. Caleb's jaw tightened. I could see the conflict in his expression, the contract he'd signed versus the truth he was now seeing. Sir, I'm going to need to verify that. Verify it, county recorder's office, property trust in my name, established long before the marriage. You'll find it all on public record. He pulled out his phone and started typing. I let him work. After a few minutes, his expression darkened. The quit claim they mentioned, he said, still reading. It was filed, but it's flagged. Says, filed under protest, pending trust review. Because you can't quit claim someone else's trust property. No, you can't. He looked up at me. Sir, I need to be clear about something. My contract is with Sentinel Security, but my license requires me to operate within legal boundaries. If this is a fraudulent displacement scenario, it is. He rubbed his face. This changes things. Does it change them enough? He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, I need to make a call. Don't leave the guest house until I come back. He left, locking the door behind him. I heard his footsteps recede across the lawn. I sat on the small couch and waited. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Caleb came back in, and his entire demeanor had shifted. The neutral professional was gone. Now he looked like a man who'd realized he'd been hired to help commit a crime. I spoke to my supervisor, he said. Explained the situation. He's pulling up the property records now. If what you're saying is true, it's true. Then I'm terminating my contract with this job. I don't help people steal houses. What happens next? That depends. They're expecting me to keep you contained here while they do whatever they're doing in the main house. If I walk off the job, they'll know something's wrong. If I stay, you become a witness, I finished. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I become a witness. There's a meeting scheduled for Monday, I said, at a private conference room downtown. Marla's setting it up. She's calling it a final negotiation. But I think it's where they plan to force a signature or manufacture some kind of breakdown they can use in court. You planning to go? I am, and I'm planning to bring my attorney. Caleb was quiet. Then, what do you need from me? I need you to stay on the job. Act like nothing's changed. Keep me contained here. Let them think they're winning. Then Monday, when we're all in that room together, I make sure you're the one who walks out. Exactly. He looked at me, then at the ring on my finger, then back at me. This is going to get ugly, he said. It already is ugly. We're just going to make it honest. He left again, this time leaving the door unlocked. I watched through the window as he walked back to the main house. Saw him talking to Marla and Elena. Saw them nodding, satisfied. That afternoon, Victor came to the guest house. He didn't knock, just opened the door and walked in like he owned the place. How you settling in? He asked. Fine. He looked around, taking in the small space. Kinda tight, huh? After living in the big house all those years. It's temporary. Yeah, about that. He sat down on the couch, uninvited. Elena's been thinking. Maybe instead of going through all this legal headache, we could work out a deal. You sign over the house, we pay you. Let's say 50 grand. Enough to get a nice apartment somewhere, start fresh. You get cash, we get the property, everybody wins. 50,000 for a $700,000 house. He shrugged. You gotta factor in the legal costs you're gonna rack up fighting this. Lawyers aren't cheap. By the time it's done, you might end up with less. This way, you walk away with something clean. No. His friendly expression hardened. Look, I'm trying to help you here. You're not in a strong position. The more you fight, the worse it's gonna get for you. People like you. People like me? Older guys, set in their ways. You don't understand how things work now. The courts favor the spouse, especially when the spouse is younger, more vulnerable. You think a judge is gonna side with you? Some old dude hoarding a house while his wife is stuck in a bad situation? She's not stuck in anything. She moved in 3 years ago. The house was already mine. That's not how the story's gonna sound. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He was utterly convinced of his own righteousness. In his mind, taking my house wasn't theft. It was correction. Older man had more than he needed. Younger couple needed a place to build their life. Simple math. You should take the deal, he said, standing. Offer expires Monday. After he left, I went to the small window and watched the main house. Through the kitchen window, I could see Elena and Marla talking, papers spread on the table. They were planning something. My phone buzzed. Text from Susan Vale. Monday 9 a.m. Conference room at 412 Commerce Street. I'll be there at 8:45. Don't go in without me. I texted back. Understood. Another text, this one from an unknown number. This is Officer Raymond Holt. I've been assigned as court observer for Monday's mediation. Standard procedure. Looking forward to meeting you. Court observer. That was new. I texted Susan. They've got a court observer coming. Does that mean anything? Her reply was immediate. It means they're trying to make it look official. Observers have no authority unless there's an actual court order. Do you have one? No. Then he's theater. Ignore him. I spent the rest of the weekend in the guest house. Caleb brought me meals, his idea, to maintain the appearance of containment. Each time he came, he gave me small updates. Elena and Marla had been on the phone with someone repeatedly. Victor had been measuring rooms in the main house, talking about renovations. They were already acting like it was theirs. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on the narrow bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The slow erosion of respect, the gradual taking of space, the assumption that because I didn't fight, I couldn't. Tomorrow, they'd learn otherwise. Monday morning came cold and gray. I showered, dressed in a button-down shirt and slacks, the kind of thing I used to wear to engineering conferences. Professional, but not aggressive. I wanted to look like exactly what I was, a quiet man who'd done everything right. At 8:15, Caleb knocked on the guest house door. Time to go, he said. I followed him to his car. Elena and Victor were already gone, their vehicles missing from the driveway. Marla had left an hour earlier. We drove in silence for the first few minutes. Then Caleb said, Your attorney know everything? Everything that matters. Good, because they're going to try to isolate you in that room. Make you feel like you're alone against all of them. Make sure she doesn't let that happen. She won't. He pulled into a parking garage downtown. The building at 412 Commerce Street was a modern glass structure, the kind that housed law firms and financial consultants. We took the elevator to the 7th floor. The reception area was empty except for a security desk. Behind it sat a young woman in a blazer who checked Caleb's ID and waved us through. We walked down a hallway lined with conference rooms. At the end was a larger room with frosted glass doors. Susan Vale was standing outside, talking on her phone. When she saw me, she ended the call. "Daniel," she said. She was 60 years old, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that made people instinctively stand straighter. "You ready?" "Yes." She looked at Caleb. "You're the security contractor?" "Yes, ma'am." Caleb Rourke. "You understand your presence here is purely observational?" "I understand. And I should tell you, I've reviewed the property records. Mr. Mercer's ownership is clear. I'm not here to help anyone take his house." Susan's expression warmed slightly. "Good man." She turned back to me. "They're already inside. Elena, Victor, Marla Quinn, and someone calling himself a court observer named Raymond Holt. He's not, by the way. I checked. There's no court order, no formal proceeding, no authority. He's just another prop in their theater. So what do? We let them perform. Let them say everything they want to say, make all their threats, present all their fraudulent claims, and then we end it." She opened the door. The conference room was large, with windows overlooking the city. A long table dominated the center. On one side sat Elena, Victor, and Marla, their chairs close together like a unified front. Across from them was Officer Raymond Holt, a tired-looking man in his 50s wearing a rumpled suit. He had a notepad in front of him and the defeated air of someone who'd done this job too many times. At the head of the table sat a laptop and a projector. "Daniel," Marla said, standing. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit." Susan and I took seats across from Elena's group. Caleb positioned himself by the door. Marla began. "As you know, we're here to reach a final resolution regarding the property dispute. Given the escalating conflict and Daniel's continued refusal to engage constructively, we've prepared a comprehensive proposal." She clicked the laptop. The projector hummed to life, displaying a PowerPoint presentation. Slide 1. Property dissolution. Final terms. "The situation is straightforward," Marla continued. "Elena has established legal residency. She's contributed financially to the household. The marriage created a community property interest. Daniel's trust, while initially valid, has been superseded by marital commingling of assets." Susan raised a hand. "I'm going to stop you there. Nothing has superseded anything. The trust is current, active, and unambiguous. Mr. Mercer is the sole legal owner." Marla smiled thinly. "Your interpretation. Our legal research shows differently." "Then show me your research." Marla clicked to the next slide. It showed a screenshot of what appeared to be a legal filing. "This is the quitclaim amendment filed with the county recorder. As you can see, Elena Mercer is now listed as co-owner." Susan leaned forward. "May I see the filing number?" Marla read it off. Susan typed it into her phone, waited, then looked up. "This filing was rejected. 2 weeks ago, the recorder's office sent a notice explaining that you cannot file a quitclaim against trust property without the trustee's approval. The document you're showing is a rejected filing." The room went very quiet. Marla recovered quickly. "A technicality. We're refiling with corrected documentation." "Except you can't. There is no corrected documentation. The trust explicitly prohibits any transfer without Mr. Mercer's consent. That's the entire point of a trust." Elena leaned forward. "He put the house in a trust to hide assets, to keep them from me. That's financial abuse." "He put the house in a trust 3 years before he met you," Susan said calmly. "It's not abuse to protect what you owned before a relationship. It's prudence." Victor spoke up. "Yeah, but she's lived there. She's paid for things. That creates equity." "With whose money?" Susan asked. "Joint money. There are no joint accounts. I've reviewed Mr. Mercer's financial records. Elena has contributed nothing to the property. Not mortgage payments, not property taxes, not insurance, not maintenance. She's paid for groceries and utilities using money Daniel gave her. That's not investment. That's living rent-free." Marla's composure was cracking. The court will see this differently. When we present evidence of Daniel's controlling behavior, his isolation tactics, his refusal to allow Elena equal partnership. You keep mentioning court, Susan interrupted. Which court? Show me the case number. Show me the filed petition. Show me any documentation that this is an actual legal proceeding and not theater you're staging to pressure my client. Marla didn't answer. Susan turned to Officer Holt. You're here as an observer, correct? He nodded. Yes, ma'am. Court appointed? He shifted uncomfortably. Well, no. Ms. Quinn hired me through my private consulting service. I'm here to ensure things stay civil. So you have no legal authority whatsoever. I observe and report. If things get physical, I can intervene. Thank you for clarifying. Susan turned back to Marla. So, to summarize, you have no valid property claim, no court case, no legal authority, and a rejected filing that you're misrepresenting as fact. What you have is a coordinated attempt to defraud my client out of his property through intimidation and falsified documentation. That's not a mediation, that's a crime. The room exploded. Elena stood up, her voice rising. This is exactly what I'm talking about. He's been planning this the whole time. He manipulated everything. He protected himself, Susan said, which, given current events, seems entirely justified. Victor was on his feet now, too. You people with your lawyers and your paperwork, you think that's how the world works? That's not how people live. Elena deserves that house. She's earned it. By what measure? Susan asked. She moved into a home someone else owned. She contributed nothing financially. She's now trying to claim ownership through false filings and manufactured grievances. That's not earning anything. That's theft. Marla tried to regain control. Everyone, please, let's stay professional. Daniel, you can still walk away from this. We're offering $75,000. Final offer. Sign the house over, take the money, and we'll drop everything. No, I said. It was the first word I'd spoken since entering the room. Daniel, Elena said, her voice taking on that pleading tone I'd heard 100 times. Please, don't let lawyers ruin what we had. We can still fix this. We can work something out. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd married, who'd smiled on our wedding day and promised partnership. The woman who'd slowly, methodically, taken every inch I'd given her and demanded more. We never had anything, I said quietly. You moved into my house and immediately started planning how to take it. You brought Victor into my bedroom before we were even divorced. You hired Marla to manufacture a legal case that doesn't exist. You've been building a narrative of abuse and control while you were the one controlling everything. So no, we can't work anything out, because you never wanted to work with me. You wanted to work around me. Elena's face went red. You think you're so smart, with your trust and your lawyer, but you're nothing. You're a washed-up engineer who got lucky once. I could have had anyone, and I chose you, and this is how you repay me? By not giving you my house? Yes, that's exactly how I repay you. Victor moved toward me, but Caleb shifted position, stepping between us. Sir, Caleb said to Victor, you need to stay seated. Who the hell are you to? I'm the person making sure this stays nonviolent. Sit down. Marla raised her hands. Everyone stop. This is getting out of control. Officer Holt, note that Daniel is creating a hostile environment. Actually, Holt said, I'm noting that Mr. Mercer has been calm and quiet while everyone else has been yelling. Marla stared at him. You're supposed to be documenting his behavior. I'm documenting everyone's behavior. That's my job. Susan stood. We're done here. Mr. Mercer is the legal owner of the property in question. Ms. Mercer has no claim, no case, and no standing. She will vacate the premises within 7 days. If she fails to do so, we will pursue formal eviction proceedings and file charges for attempted fraud. You can't evict her, Marla said. She has residency rights. She has residency at the discretion of the owner. That discretion is now revoked. 7 days. Elena was shaking. You can't do this. I have nowhere to go. You have Victor, I said. I'm sure he has a place. Victor's face darkened. My lease is up next month. Not my problem. Susan gathered her papers. We're done. Daniel, let's go. I stood, but Marla moved to block the door. You're not leaving until we resolve this. Caleb stepped forward. Ma'am, step aside. I'm not letting him. Ma'am, I need you to step aside, now. Something in his voice made her move. Susan and I walked toward the door. Elena's voice followed us. You'll regret this, Daniel. I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. I stopped at the door and turned back. Tell them, I said. Tell them you tried to steal a house. Tell them you filed fraudulent claims. Tell them you brought your boyfriend into my bedroom and thought I'd just leave quietly. Tell them all of it. See how sympathetic they are. We left. In the hallway, Susan turned to me. You okay? I'm fine. Good. Because now comes the hard part. They're not going to leave voluntarily. Elena will drag this out, make it as painful as possible. Are you prepared for that? I am. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right, go home. Change the locks. I'll file the eviction paperwork this afternoon. And Daniel? Yes? You did the right thing. The hard thing, but the right thing. Caleb drove me back to the house. When we pulled into the driveway, Elena's car was already there. So was Victor's truck. You want me to come in with you? Caleb asked. No, this part I need to do alone. I walked into my house, for what felt like the first time in months. Elena was in the kitchen, her face blotchy from crying. Victor stood beside her, arms crossed. 7 days, I said. Elena looked at me with pure hatred. I'm not going anywhere. Then the sheriff will remove you. Your choice. She threw a glass. It shattered against the wall beside my head. Victor moved toward me, but I didn't flinch. Try it, I said quietly. Please. Give me one reason to call the police right now. He stopped. I went upstairs to the master bedroom, my bedroom, and started pulling Elena's things out of the closet. I filled trash bags with clothes, shoes, jewelry. I wasn't gentle about it. Elena appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? Helping you pack. That's my stuff. In my house. You have 7 days to collect it all. Whatever's left after that gets donated. She was crying again, but this time there was something else in her expression. Fear. Real fear. Daniel, please. Can't we talk about this? Really talk? We've talked. We're done talking. But where will I go? I turned to face her fully. That's not my problem anymore. You chose this. You could have stayed, been a partner, built a life together. Instead, you chose to take. So now you get nothing. I loved you, she whispered. No, you didn't. You loved what I had. There's a difference. I went back to packing her things. After a moment, she left. That night, I slept in my own bedroom for the first time in 4 months. The sheets were fresh. I'd stripped the bed and put on new ones. The room smelled like cleaning solution and possibility. Through the window, I could see the guest house dark and empty. And I thought about how close they'd come to winning. How close silence had come to being mistaken for surrender. The next morning, I woke to pounding on the door. I checked my phone, 6:30 a.m. I pulled on clothes and went downstairs. Through the peephole, I could see Elena and Victor. She was holding papers. He was holding a phone, filming. I opened the door. What? Elena shoved the papers at me. Restraining order. You can't kick me out. You can't intimidate me. You can't come near me. I took the papers and scanned them. It was a request for a restraining order, not an actual order. Big difference. This isn't a restraining order, I said. This is a request. You still have to go to court and prove I've done something to warrant it. You threw my things out. I packed your belongings after you attempted to steal my house, That's not abuse. That's response to attempted fraud. Victor stepped forward. Bro, you need to back off. You're harassing her. I'm standing in my doorway of my house. You're the ones banging on my door at 6:30 in the morning. Who's harassing who? I have rights, Elena shouted. I've been living here for 3 years. You can't just throw me out. Watch me. I closed the door. The pounding started again. I ignored it and went to make coffee. My phone rang. Susan Vale. They filed for a restraining order, she said without preamble. I know. They're outside my door right now. Are they threatening you? Not explicitly, just being loud. Film it. Document everything. Their behavior is going to help us, not hurt us. I pulled out my phone and started recording through the window. Elena was pacing on the front lawn, talking to someone on her phone. Victor was still filming the house. The pounding stopped. Instead, Elena sat down on the front steps. Just sat there. Waiting. An hour later, a police car pulled up. 2 officers got out. Elena immediately started talking to them, gesturing at the house, at me visible through the window. One officer came to the door. I opened it before he knocked. Sir, I'm Officer Ramirez. We got a call about a domestic disturbance. No disturbance. She's trespassing. He looked back at Elena, then at me. She says she lives here. She did. She no longer does. She's been served with eviction notice. She has 7 days to collect her belongings and vacate. She says you threw her things out and locked her out. I packed her things after she attempted to fraudulently claim ownership of my property. She still has access. The locks haven't been changed yet. She's choosing to sit on the lawn for dramatic effect. The officer studied me. You have documentation of the eviction? I do. I pulled out the copy Susan had given me. He read it, then went back to Elena. They talked for several minutes. She was crying now, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Victor was still filming everything. The officer came back. Sir, she has residency rights. Until the court processes the eviction, you can't prevent her from entering. I'm not preventing anything. The door's unlocked. She's welcome to collect her things. She says she's afraid to go inside. Afraid of what? I'm one person. She has Victor. You're here. What exactly is she afraid of? He didn't have an answer for that. Just keep things civil, all right? Let her get her belongings. Stay out of each other's way. After the police left, Elena came inside. Victor followed, carrying empty boxes. They went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen, drinking coffee, listening to them move through the house, drawers opening and closing, closet doors, muffled conversation. Victor came down first, carrying 2 boxes. He gave me a long look as he passed. You're going to regret this. I already don't. Elena came down an hour later with more bags. Her eyes were red, her makeup smeared. She looked genuinely broken. For a moment I felt something. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition of shared humanity. Then I remembered the conference room, the smug confidence, the $75,000 offer for a $700,000 house. The feeling passed. I hope you're happy, she said. I'm relieved. What's the difference? Happy would mean I enjoyed this. I didn't. But I'm relieved it's over. She stood there for a moment longer, then left. Over the next 3 days, she came back several times to collect more things. Each time, Victor was with her. Each time, they filmed everything. I assumed they were building some kind of case, documenting their victimhood. I let them. I stayed calm, said little, gave them nothing they could use. On the 4th day, Marla showed up with a different security person, not Caleb. This one was larger, more obviously muscle than professional. He stood by their truck while Elena and Victor loaded furniture. That's my furniture, I said from the doorway. It's our furniture, Elena called back. We bought it together. I bought it. You lived with it. There's a difference. She ignored me and kept loading. The security guy watched me like I might charge them. I stayed in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them theft my belongings in broad daylight. I filmed it all. When they drove away with a truck full of my things, I called Susan. They just stole about $15,000 worth of furniture, I said. Good. Good? They're creating evidence. Every illegal thing they do makes our case stronger. Let them take it. We'll add it to the damages claim. That night, I walked through the house counting what was missing. Couch, dining table, chairs, bedroom set from the guest room, TV, kitchen appliances. They'd taken everything they could carry. The house felt empty, but it also felt clean. Day 5, Elena came back with a U-Haul. This time, Marla was with them, and she had papers. Daniel, she said, approaching the door, we're prepared to drop all claims if you compensate Elena for her contributions to the household. We've calculated fair market value for her 3 years of residency and emotional investment. The amount is $120,000. No. Then we're filing a lawsuit, breach of marital contract, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraudulent concealment of assets. File it. We'll see you in court. She smiled thinly. Court is expensive, Daniel. Even if you win, you'll spend $50,000 in legal fees. Wouldn't it be easier to just pay Elena what she's owed and move on? She's owed nothing, and I'm not paying extortion to make this go away. Your choice. They loaded the U-Haul with more things. More of my things. I filmed it all. When they finished, Elena came to the door one last time. I really did care about you, she said. At the beginning. Maybe, but you cared about the house more. Can you blame me? Do you know what it's like to have nothing, to build from nothing, to finally find security and then have it ripped away? Yes, I said. I do, because I built this from nothing, and you're trying to rip it away. She left. Day 6, nothing. The house was quiet. I spent the day cleaning, reclaiming space, throwing out anything that reminded me of her. I boxed up photos, donations items she'd brought into the house, decorative touches that had never been my style. By evening, the house felt like mine again. Day 7 arrived, Elena's deadline. I woke early, expecting drama, police, something. But the morning stayed quiet. At 9 a.m., a moving truck pulled up. Elena and Victor got out, along with Marla and 2 movers. They began loading the last of Elena's belongings, clothes still in the closets, toiletries from the bathroom, personal items I hadn't touched. I watched from the window. This was it, the actual end. By noon, the truck was full. Elena walked through the house one last time, Victor trailing behind her. She touched the walls, the counters, the door frames, saying goodbye to what she'd almost stolen. When she got to the kitchen, she found me standing there. I left my keys on the counter, she said. Thank you. I want you to know I'll never forgive you for this. I can live with that. She started to leave, then turned back. You could have been kind. You could have helped me transition, given me time, money, something. But you chose to be cruel. I chose to protect what was mine. You're confusing boundaries with cruelty. You'll die alone in this house. Maybe, but it'll be my house when I do. She left. I watched through the window as they loaded into their vehicles. The moving truck pulled away. Elena's car followed. Victor's truck was last, and then they were gone. I stood in the empty house, my house, and breathed. The air felt different, lighter, like a weight I hadn't fully acknowledged was suddenly lifted. My phone rang. Susan Vale. They gone? They're gone. Good. Now I need you to listen carefully. They're going to try one more thing. They've filed a lawsuit claiming you owe Elena compensation for her time. It's going to be nasty, full of allegations. Don't respond to any of it directly. Don't post on social media. Don't talk to mutual friends. Don't engage. Everything goes through me. Understood? Understood. And Daniel? You did it. You held the line. A lot of people would have folded. I almost did. But you didn't. That's what counts. That night, I slept in a house that was finally, completely, only mine. No one in the master bedroom who didn't belong there. No one in the guest house plotting. No one measuring rooms for renovations they'd never do. Just me, and the space I'd built, and the peace I'd fought for. The lawsuit arrived 2 weeks later, 57 pages of allegations. Elena claimed I'd promised her the house, claimed I'd emotionally manipulated her, claimed I'd used my age and experience to control her, claimed I'd isolated her from friends and family, claimed I owed her for housework, companionship, emotional labor. She was asking for $250,000. Susan read through it in my presence, her expression unchanging. When she finished, she set it down and looked at me. This is garbage. Legally speaking, complete garbage. But it's going to be a fight. They're going to subpoena records, request depositions, drag this out as long as possible. Are you prepared for that? Do I have a choice? You always have a choice. We could settle. Pay her $50,000 to go away. Save the time and stress. No, she smiled. Good, because I wanted to hear you say it. Now we fight. The next 6 weeks were procedural hell. Requests for documents, interrogatories, depositions scheduled and rescheduled. Marla Quinn filed motion after motion, each one more frivolous than the last. But Susan was ready for all of it. Every document they requested, she had. Every claim they made, she had evidence refuting. Every witness they wanted to call, she had counter-witnesses. The deposition was scheduled for a Wednesday morning at a law office downtown. I arrived early. Susan was already there, going over notes. Remember, she said, answer only what they ask. Don't volunteer information. Don't get emotional. They're going to try to make you look controlling, angry, vindictive. Stay calm no matter what they say. We went into the conference room. Elena was already seated with Marla and another attorney, someone younger, sharper dressed. He introduced himself as Marcus Brennan, specialist in family law. Mr. Mercer, he began, once we were all seated and the court reporter was ready, let's start simple. When did you purchase the house in question? June 2016. And when did you meet Elena? March 2019. So the house was yours for nearly 3 years before you met? Yes. And when did Elena move in? October 2021. At your invitation? Yes. And during her residency, did she contribute financially? She bought groceries sometimes, paid for utilities occasionally. But not mortgage, property tax, insurance, maintenance? No. Did you ask her to contribute to those expenses? No. Why not? Because I didn't need her money. The house was mine. I was covering everything. So you maintained complete financial control? Susan interjected. Objection to characterization. He maintained responsibility for property he solely owned. Brennan continued. Did you discuss marriage before proposing? Yes. Did you discuss property and assets? Generally. Did you inform Elena that the house was in an irrevocable trust that excluded her from ownership? I paused. This was the trap. I told her the house was mine before we met. That's not what I asked. Did you specifically explain the trust structure? We didn't discuss legal technicalities. So you didn't inform her that marriage to you would not give her any claim to the property? I assumed she understood that a house I owned before we met remained my property. You assumed. Did you confirm? No. Brennan made a note. Would you say Elena believed you were building a life together? I think she said that, yes. And building a life together typically implies shared assets, does it not? Not assets acquired before the relationship. But she didn't know the house was in a trust specifically designed to prevent her from ever having ownership, correct? Susan cut in. The house was in a standard trust for asset protection. This isn't some conspiracy. It's basic estate planning. Brennan ignored her. Mr. Mercer, when Elena moved in, did you change anything about the house to make her feel it was hers too? I gave her space. She decorated, chose furniture. Furniture you're now claiming was stolen? Furniture I paid for. Furniture you encouraged her to select? Yes. For her home? For the house, which she believed was her home, which was my property. We went on like this for 3 hours. Brennan was good. He made every reasonable decision I'd made sound sinister. Letting Elena decorate became allowing her to invest emotionally while keeping legal control. Not discussing the trust became deliberately concealing material facts. Asking her to leave after she tried to claim ownership became vindictive retaliation. But Susan was better. In her cross-examination, she established that Elena had moved into a fully furnished, fully paid-for house, that she'd contributed nothing to its value, that she'd been aware from the beginning that it was my property, that she'd only started claiming ownership after moving Victor in. When we broke for the day, Brennan approached me in the hallway. "You could end this today," he said. "Pay Elena $100,000. Call it good." "No. You're going to spend that much in legal fees." "Maybe. But at least Susan earns her money honestly." His expression hardened. "Your choice. But when we go to trial, we're going to paint you as a controlling older man who manipulated a younger woman. We're going to make you look like a predator. Are you ready for that?" "I'm ready for the truth to matter more than your story." He walked away. The trial date was set for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, I lived in my house, worked on small projects, reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with during the marriage. People started asking what happened. I kept it simple. We separated. It didn't work out. Some people pushed for details. I didn't give them. Elena, apparently, had no such restraint. I started hearing through mutual acquaintances that she was telling everyone I'd kicked her out with no warning, taken everything, left her homeless. Susan advised me not to respond. "Let her control the narrative in the court of public opinion," she said. "We'll control it in actual court, where it matters." But it stung. Watching people I'd known for years start looking at me differently. Hearing whispers at the grocery store. Having someone I'd considered a friend send me a message saying I should be ashamed of myself. I reminded myself that truth was slower than gossip, but more durable. The trial began on a Monday morning in November. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more bureaucratic than dramatic. Judge Patricia Whitmore presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and zero patience for nonsense. Brennan made his opening statement. He painted Elena as a naive young woman who'd fallen in love with an older man, believed they were building a future together, invested her time and energy into making a home, only to be discarded when the man decided he was done. "This isn't about legal technicalities," Brennan said. "This is about what's right, about compensating someone for years of their life, for emotional labor, for the reasonable expectation that when you build a life with someone, you're building something together." Susan's opening was shorter. "This is exactly about legal technicalities. Property law exists for a reason. Mr. Mercer owned a house before meeting Elena. She moved into that house. She paid for nothing structural or permanent. She now wants ownership of something she never purchased, never invested in, never had claim to. This isn't romance. This is attempted theft with a sympathetic story attached." The first witness was Elena. She took the stand in a conservative dress, minimal makeup, looking younger and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. Brennan walked her through the relationship. How we'd met, how I'd pursued her, how I'd promised her security and partnership, how she'd given up her own apartment to move in with me, how she'd decorated, cooked, maintained the household, how she'd believed we were building something permanent. "Did Daniel ever tell you the house was in a trust?" Brennan asked. "No. He said it was his house from before we met. But I thought that meant it was his house that would become our house when we married. That's how marriage works, isn't it?" "And when did you learn about the trust?" "When his lawyer told me I had no claim to it. After 3 years of living there. After giving up my own place, my own independence. How did that make you feel? Betrayed, used, like I'd been living in a fantasy while he knew the whole time I'd never have anything. Susan's cross-examination was clinical. You gave up your apartment? Yes. What was the rent? $800 a month. And the house you moved into? I don't know. I wasn't paying mortgage. Because Mr. Mercer was paying a $3,000 monthly mortgage, plus property taxes, plus insurance, plus maintenance. So you gave up $800 a month in rent to live somewhere costing $4,000 a month. That's quite a financial sacrifice. Elena's composure flickered. It wasn't about money. No? Then what was it about? Partnership, love, building a future. Did you contribute to the mortgage? No, but I contributed in other ways. Did you contribute to property taxes? I paid for groceries. Did you contribute to insurance? I did housework. Did you contribute to the down payment? I wasn't there for the down payment. I met him years later. Exactly. You met him years after he purchased the property. You moved into a home he already owned. You paid for groceries and utilities, expenses you'd have anywhere, and now you're claiming you deserve ownership. Is that correct? I deserve compensation for my time. Your time doing what? Living rent-free in an expensive house? Brennan objected. Judge Whitmore sustained it, but the damage was done. The trial continued for 3 days, witness after witness. Elena's friends testified that she'd believed the house was hers too. My friends testified that I'd always been clear about property ownership. Victor took the stand and claimed I'd been hostile and threatening. Caleb Rourke took the stand and testified that I'd been calm and professional, while Elena's group had been aggressive and manipulative. On the 3rd day, Susan called me to the stand. Mr. Mercer, why did you put your house in a trust? For protection. I'd worked 30 years, saved carefully, bought property. I wanted to make sure it stayed mine regardless of what happened in my life. Did you anticipate divorce when you created the trust? I anticipated uncertainty, illness, accidents, financial changes. A trust protects against all of it. When you met Elena, did you hide the trust? No. I didn't advertise it, but I didn't hide it. If she'd asked, I would have explained. Did she ever ask? No. When she moved in, did you promise her ownership? Never. I offered her a place to live. That's all. And when she tried to claim the house, I protected what was mine, the same as anyone would. Brennan's cross-examination was aggressive. You're a wealthy man, Mr. Mercer. I'm comfortable. You own a $700,000 house outright. You have retirement savings, investments. You're not struggling, are you? No. So giving Elena $100,000 wouldn't hurt you financially? That's not the point. What is the point? The principle. She's not entitled to something just because she wants it. That's not how property works. But it is how relationships work, isn't it? You give to people you care about? I gave her housing, food, security for 3 years. She gave me companionship. That was the arrangement. You're saying her companionship was worth $2,500 a month? I'm saying I didn't owe her my house. Even though she believed you were building a life together? Belief doesn't create ownership. The trial ended on a Thursday afternoon. Judge Whitmore said she'd issue a ruling within 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were agony. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. I kept replaying the trial in my head, wondering if I'd said the wrong thing, if Susan had missed something, if the judge would side with emotion over law. Susan called me the day before the ruling was set to be released. I've seen the preliminary decision, she said. You won. I couldn't speak. Daniel? I'm here. You won. Complete victory. She gets nothing. Judge ruled that Elena had no basis for ownership claim, no evidence of financial contribution, no legitimate expectation of compensation. Judge also ruled that Elena's team filed in bad faith and ordered them to pay your legal fees. I sat down heavily. All of them? All of them. $60,000. They tried to steal your house, and now they're paying for your defense. What about Elena? She's on the hook for her own legal fees plus yours. I'd estimate she's about $120,000 in debt right now. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. The next morning, I received the official ruling by email. 12 pages of legal analysis, all concluding the same thing. Elena had no claim. Elena's attorneys had overreached. Elena owed me money. I forwarded it to Susan without comment. That afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Caleb Rourke standing there, out of uniform, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Mercer," he said, "I wanted to apologize in person for taking that contract, for being part of their plan, even at the beginning. I should have checked the property records immediately. I should have seen what they were doing." "You did see it, eventually. That's what matters. I testified at your trial. Did it help?" "It helped." He nodded, relieved. "Good. I'm glad. And I wanted you to know. I've changed how I vet jobs now. I verify ownership before I take any residency dispute contract. What they did to you, I won't be part of something like that again. Thank you." After he left, I walked through my house. Room by room, floor by floor. Every space was mine. Legally, formally, absolutely mine. No one could take it. No one could claim it. No one could diminish it. I thought about Elena, wherever she was, dealing with the debt and the loss and the consequences of her choices. I thought about Victor, who'd been so confident age meant weakness. I thought about Marla Quinn, who'd sold her services to facilitate theft. And I thought about silence and how it had been mistaken for surrender right up until the moment it became victory. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy. Elena." I read it twice. Then I blocked the number. I didn't need her forgiveness, her understanding, or her rage. I needed my house, my peace, my boundaries respected. And I had them. I stood at the window, looking out at the property I'd nearly lost. The lawn I'd mowed 1,000 times, the garden I'd planted, the guest house where they'd tried to contain me. All of it mine. Not through luck, not through cruelty, through preparation, documentation, and the simple act of protecting what I'd built. The doorbell rang again. I opened it to find Susan Vale standing there with a bottle of